This is Winston, the content marketing guy. And today I am ecstatic. I have a wonderful personality with me as a guest today on the podcast Conversation with Marketers, Mrs. Kerry-Ann Stimpson. Is it Mrs.?
Yes, Winston. Yes, it is.
I want to pay it up like,
of
wow.
course, Kerry-Ann is fine.
I think you should have followed that up before you did our intro. But I mean, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wonderful personality. I'm happy that she agreed to be on the podcast. So Kerry-Ann, welcome.
Thanks, Winston. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. I know this is going to be a wonderful session. So before we begin, let me just, help the audience understand who you are. So you are the Chief Marketing Officer for JMMB, which is one of the most reputable financial institutions in the Caribbean. You have close to 20 years, extensive experience and expertise in the financial industry, specifically, where you've held position not just as a CMO, but also as an AVP of marketing, as well as a senior marketing manager. And you also hold an MBA in marketing from the University of Maryland.
Yes. Robert Smith School of Business, Maryland College Park. I'm a Terp. Terrapin, yeah.
So, first of all, before I even get into the nitty-gritty, I just want to congratulate you for the work that you and the team at JMB have been doing in terms of your content marketing initiative that you've taken on. I've been paying attention, which is even one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on to really, dive into how that whole initiative came about. And I'm sure from a branding perspective, you've actually seen a difference in terms of people showing just as much appreciation for the content that's really educational, really of value to the audience, and not necessarily focused on, the financial products and services that you offer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Winston. I appreciate the feedback and the compliment. We have a great team. I'm supported by a great team, and I certainly couldn't do what I do without them. And the JMMB brand is an awesome brand. It's one of those brands I say is a marketer's dream. If you are ever to do financial marketing or financial service marketing, JMMB is one of those brands you'd want to be able to do that for.
So one of the things I always like to start with every single guest that comes on is their journey, because I love to hear the journey, love to hear about the story. So share your story in terms of where your marketing career journey started to the point where you are right now. Tell us how Kerry-Ann became Kerry-Ann CMO of JMMB. What's your story?
Sure. Well, in a nutshell, because you've aged me by saying I have almost 20 years. Totally aged me, right? Well, it's all good. Yeah, that would have been on my profile. That would have been on my profile. I'm just kidding. But I'd like to tell you that, from as a little kid or a teenager, I always had this dream to be a marketer, and that's so not the case. I actually ended up in marketing quite accidentally. In Jamaica, we have to choose very early what subjects we want to do in high school. And incidentally, I started out on a science track. To graduate, I was doing chemistry and biology. And then in 12th and 13th grade, I switched over to accounting, thinking that maybe it's accounting I wanted to do. And then it wasn't until I went to university for my bachelor's degree. I did my bachelor's degree at the University of the West Indies here in Jamaica. I stumbled upon a marketing course. It was a compulsory marketing course that I had to do, more or less. And I just was really intrigued by it. It didn't have too much math in there, which was a good thing. And it wasn't all creative either, because that's the misnomer a lot of folks have, that, marketing is really only for creatives. I saw that marketing actually had a very strategic and analytical side for the very first time. And that is actually a natural strength for me. I'm very analytical. I'm very strategic in how I like to think. I love to ask, why does this thing work the way it does? And how can we change something to get a different outcome? And that's where my love affair with marketing began. And finished university, worked, here and there in some part-time jobs here and there until I decided to go and do my MBA, specializing in marketing at the Robert H. Smith School of Business. at University of Maryland College Park, which was an awesome experience, being exposed to so many awesome professors and fellow colleagues who were also part of the program, and further cemented that, I was really making the right decision. When I finished my MBA, came back to Jamaica, job hunting, financial services, marketing was again not on my radar. And again, stereotypically, marketing is about the consumer products, the sexy type stuff, the red stripe bears, and all these wonderful things. And again, just by chance, there was this opportunity with a boutique investment company who was looking for a new marketing manager. And I applied. The rest is history. And again, it's been really an awesome journey. And I really have grown to love financial services marketing. It's a very different kind of marketing relative to again, consumer products marketing or perhaps any other industry. Because what you're really doing is you are really driving at the heart of what is a very complex decision-making process for the consumer, right? So the decision-making process that the average person or business goes through to determine which financial institution they want to save with or invest with, it's quite complex. It's not as simple as, picking up maybe a tube of toothpaste or a bar of soap. It's very complex, it's very involved. And I really enjoy, as a marketer, understanding that journey, seeing that journey evolve, and knowing what are the right marketing strategies to put in at the various stages of the buying cycle to get the consumer to choose my institution. So it's been an awesome journey.
Right. And you said some things that I really want to unpack. It's like, while you're talking, I'm like, I need to make a note of this, because, and the first thing you said is that you accidentally stumbled into marketing, which is quite funny, because it seems that's the story of almost every marketer. It was my story, because I actually went to UTech to study IT. And just like you, they had a mandatory course in marketing, and I did that mandatory course, and that's when my love for marketing really developed from there, because I had no clue I wanted to do marketing. My thing was just, when I was in high school, they said that IT paid the most. I'm like, all right, I'm going to study the thing that's going to make me the most money. But fell in love with marketing. And also, you made a very important point that I also want to underscore, which is the fact that a lot of people believe that marketing is all about the creative, it's all about what looks good. And even with marketers today, because I would speak with other people who want to become marketers potentially, or aspiring marketers, and one of the things I always ask them is, well, why you want to do it? And they're like, well, because I like the events, I like to go out and meet people, and I like to create. And I'm like, there's so much more into marketing.
That's right.
That's probably like 2% or at most 5% of what marketing really is. So let's talk about, because you mentioned it briefly, but I want to dive in it a bit deeper. How does marketing for the financial services sector differ from other sectors? Because we know marketing is marketing in terms of certain foundational concepts, but how does it differ in terms of certain nuances on the approach to marketing?
So the first thing I like to put in front of everybody to answer that question is to, first of all, not even focus on the word financial, but to focus on the word service, right? Or services. And the marketing of a service is, first of all, very different from the marketing of a tangible product, like a cell phone or something like that. And the reason why that is that a service is usually delivered by a person, or in today's parlance, sometimes technology, a piece of technology. But it's usually delivered by people. And when you have a situation where there's someone delivering a service and the consumer is benefiting from that service, the key difference between the marketing of a service and a product is that the production of the service and the consumption of the service are happening at the same time. So whereas with a product, I could probably, spit out a couple of widgets, And maybe some of them will be bad, a consumer will buy them, most of them will be good, and then some of the widgets will be bad, and you can always send it back to me and I can replace it and that sort of thing. With the service, you almost get that one chance to make that connection, because the consumption and the production are happening at the same time. And so what that means is that as a marketer, to my mind, first and foremost, there's a great burden of responsibility to ensure that what you're proclaiming to be so will be so. And what you say, well, how awesome the service is or how fabulous the services will be so. But the thing is too, is that everybody who's offering a service, especially in your industry, can say the same thing. So I'm in financial services. There are tons of financial services brands out there. And everybody can say, we offer great service, you know, great service, awesome service, everybody's smiling. Again, the onus will now be on the financial services marketer to find that point of differentiation. And that point of differentiation can't be service, because everybody is saying it. And it can't be necessarily the products either, because again, in financial services now, products are basically the same. You got a car loan, you got a mortgage. We just changed the rates, we changed the tenure, we may add a sweetener to it here and there, you can get a voucher, but it's pretty much, you know, cookie cutter and very much the same. And so I find that for financial services marketing, the core of how a marketer can position the brand and what positioning your brand holds, to me, that is where the greatest challenge is going to be. And the thing is, again, that as a marketer, I can't just put a brand out there and say, hey, this is who we are. It has to line up again with that team member, the staff, the people who are, again, producing that service. So going back to, you know, JMB, which Jamaica Money Market Brokers are one of our founding values, and really who we are as an organization is we say it straight out, it's about love. So when I go out there and I'm pushing the message about our positioning based on love, when the consumer comes in and experiences that, they have to feel that love. So the culture and the people and the core values of what we espouse across the organization, that has to come out as well. So that to me is the finite difference. So it's not in the service per se, it's not in the products. It's in that brand positioning, and how are you going to position your brand in a way that's not only memorable, but unique, so that you stand out from what is otherwise a very, you know, bread and butter sort of industry.
Right. So you spoke about brand positioning. Speak more a bit in terms of how do you keep the brand relevant? Do you have like a process that you use? Is there a system, or, you know, just walk us through that in terms of the how to. Well, I know you probably can't give much in terms of the secret sauce, but as much as you can, you know, share with us how does JMB keep its brand, or, you know, you and the team keep the JMB brand relevant.
Right. So the first thing is that as an organization, we like to say we're not a made-up brand. So no one ever sat in a room and said, oh, we're going to be about love, and that's what we're going to do, and everything is going to pivot on that. We actually believe, and well, it is a fact, that love is actually the founding principles of our organization. So one of our co-founders, the late Joan Duncan, she was about love, and it was her objective to create a financial institution based on love, loving people because of who they are, because we are all people are created equal. This is what we believe as an organization. And it is the power of unconditional love that's going to help everyone to realize the inherent greatness that's within them. And I'm saying this, and you may be looking at me and saying, but you're a financial institution. What's all this mumbo jumbo? But again, the reality is your positioning has to come from the core of who you are as an organization. What are your founding principles? What do you really believe? Because it has to be authentic in how you bring it forward. So for us, we start from a place of who we are, which is love and care and integrity and mutual respect. And from that standpoint, there are a number of things and strategic alliances that we would have across the organization. So the first thing is our people. Again, our people are the ones delivering the experience. Our HR department, we don't even call it HR, we call it our culture and human development unit. Because again, beyond HR, we are about what are we doing to maintain the culture and build and develop our people to, again, be a part of how we support our clients in achieving their financial goals and realizing the greatness that is within them. So there's that strategic alliance. And then the other thing is, of course, we look at how our communication pieces are aligned with our brand positioning, how our messaging aligns with that, the very words we use, the imagery that we use, all of our brand guidelines, again, hinge on what that positioning says about love and care. And then finally, of course, we ensure that we're always testing it. So things like measuring our brand sentiment and our brand health. How are persons perceiving the JMMB brand? Do they perceive it in a way that's consistent with who we are and the positioning that we birthed from that? That's all part of the mix of how we ensure that we keep that going.
Awesome. And I love the point you made in terms of you're not a made-up brand, but it starts from the core of who you are. Like, it's funny because it's one of those things where you innately know it to be true in terms of when you want to create a meaningful brand, but to actually hear you say it, like, I don't know, something clicked to me and I'm like, that's it. That's exactly it.
Yes, yes.
I can tell we're probably going to be here for a while. Let me just because that was just question one.
well, you know, Winston, I like to bring it up, and I use the word authentic, and I don't even want to brush over it. Right. In this world where it's so easy for consumers to switch, it's so easy for people to make a change, you know, or change a choice that they would have made, even for their financial institution. And we're finding more people making the decision to switch. Again, if your brand positioning is not aligned with who you are as an organization, that's inauthenticity. And if it's inauthentic, then it won't come out in how you serve your clients and the experience that they receive. Right. So, you know, without calling any names, one could probably think of at least one of our competitors who, if they came out tomorrow and said, we are about love and care, everybody would laugh because it's so inconsistent with who they are as an organization. And things like your policies, your pricing policies, your fee policies, all of that has to come from your positioning. And again, if your positioning is not hinged on your core values and who you are, then it's not going to connect. And so I really want to underscore that point.
Right. Wonderful, wonderful. So let me just go left field for a bit. Just a bit of a generic question, if you want to call it that. But what motivates you to get up every day and, you know, come into work, get the job done, even on the days when you really don't feel like it, you know, the days when you're tired and you work long hours and you're like, I have to get up and go and do this again tomorrow. Like, what motivates you to really get up and get the job done?
Wow. Apart from my kids, I mean, I'll just be very honest and say that I am the kind of person, I don't like leaving things undone. That's the first thing. So I'm very driven. I'm very deadline oriented, and I'm not comfortable with things generally being undone. So that's just who I am at the core. So that's a driver in terms of my behavior and so on. But for me, I always like the thrill of the win as well. I always am cognizant of the fact I probably am very competitive too, and I don't know if that's a good word in these times, but I'm competitive. At the end of the day, I recognize that a key part of the function that we have is to help the organization to achieve at the core of it financial goals. And every day I'm very sensitive to the fact that our consumers have a choice to make, and it's my job to support them in helping to choose my organization. So it's that constant desire to always want to win in helping them to choose JMMB. And so that's really what keeps me going. So it's what's the next great thing, the innovative thing that we can put out there that's really going to cause us to stand out and help people want to stop and take a look at JMMB and choose JMMB. That's what really drives me.
Right. Awesome. And I don't think wanting to win and being competitive is a bad thing as long as it's healthy, because I'm like that as well. Probably that's why I'm agreeing with you. But it helps you to always, even when you're winning, it puts you in a position where you're always looking for what's that next level, what's that next thing that helps us to stand out. So I definitely agree with you on that one. So I read somewhere, and this was very interesting to me. There's a quote, and I'm quoting you on this one, where he says, "I believe that marketing can't be successful without first having strong employee engagement." I love that phrase, by the way. Tell us a bit more about that phrase and why you believe that.
Okay, so it's that terminology comes out of a principle that I know to be called internal marketing, right?
Right.
So internal marketing, so normally marketing is external, right? We focus on the customer and we focus on prospective customers. We share
Right.
our vision, our brand, our offerings to them in the hopes that they will choose us, right? Internal marketing now is pretty much that same message, the promotion of our vision, our mission, our brand, and our offerings, but doing so to staff, to team members on the inside, right? And why I've developed this new passion for internal marketing is that probably, again, because I'm in a services industry, I can be saying anything I want to say to the external client. If every encounter they have at all of our brand touch points is not consistent with what I'm saying, then again, we have inauthenticity and we risk losing our clients or certainly not gaining new ones. How do I ensure that the brand touch points that our clients engage in are hitting the mark and lining up with who we say we are and what we say we provide? It has to be with the team members themselves. So if they don't understand the vision and the mission and the solutions and their role in it, then they won't be able to deliver on their particular responsibilities as it pertains to the brand touch points. And worse, they can't even become what we would even call brand advocates, because that's a huge untapped opportunity that a lot of companies are missing, where you have this bed of employees who come and work and the salaries you pay them feed their families every day, but they're not necessarily being the kinds of brand advocates that they could otherwise be, not necessarily because they don't want to, but because you haven't engaged them. And so that's my focus right now, is how are we engaging our team members or employees to understand and even develop that passion again, if they've lost it, or certainly to reignite the passion that they have for the brand and the offerings. And so they can get excited about who we are. They can get excited about our brands and our offerings so that they too can be advocates on our behalf. And it makes marketing's job much easier when you know you have team members who are engaged, who are passionate, and who are delivering on the promise that you say you can deliver on.
Yeah, that's very true. I find that a lot of organizations, especially the large ones, they tend to miss that. It tends to always be about the bottom line. So because the focus isn't placed on the employees, then basically it's a case where the employees reciprocate that same energy where, all right, for you it's the bottom line, well, for me it's just my paycheck. So, if I'm helping you get your bottom line and you're paying me, then there's nothing else more that I need to do in terms of being a brand advocate. I'm just showing up for a job, basically.
Essentially, that's what you have. And what's interesting is we actually did a focus group internally recently just to get a sense of how team members were feeling about the brand and whether or not they felt that they were sufficiently engaged. And that was the interesting feedback that we received, is that in some instances, they felt we were more engaging to our clients than we were to the team members. And of course, they recognize their role as brand representatives, as ambassadors of the brand. And some of them really, for want of a better term, they felt kind of left out. Why aren't you engaging us more? Why aren't we more aware of the marketing strategies and the role that it plays? And what can we do to support and to partner? And how can we benefit as well? And so it's really been an interesting conversation that we've been having around how do we strengthen our internal marketing infrastructure to build that kind of engagement and, of course, build a broader breadth of advocates among our team members, among our employees.
Right. So one of the questions I want to ask, because at the beginning, I praise you and the team for the work that you're doing with content marketing, because I've seen it, I've recognized it. But I'm also curious, why did you decide to adopt a content marketing approach in terms of how it helps to strengthen your marketing and your business strategy?
Sure, not a problem. So again, financial services, the buying decision that a consumer goes through in order to choose a financial institution to do business with is a very complex one. People tend not to know a lot about how to manage their money effectively, how to invest well, and so on. And we also recognize that consumers at the core of it are most, or let me rephrase, consumers most endear to brands that they find to be helpful. Can you help me? Are you relevant to what's going on in my world right now? And so we recognize that, again, as a financial institution, talking to folks who are a little bit hesitant, not exactly au fait, we have to help them. We have to help them with content, with information that they need to make decisions. And sometimes that content doesn't necessarily have to be about, okay, now are you going to buy that mortgage? It doesn't have to be about that. It's financial education, and it's education even about lifestyle, because even our webinars that we've been doing recently to help our clients and the general public navigate through the COVID-19 crisis, some of them aren't even about money at all. You know, some of them are about just building your own personal brand online. We're going to be doing one shortly about relationships and how to build your relationships, families, couples, singles during this time of crisis. And that has nothing to do with money. And I can't tell you we're going to make any sales from that particular episode. But at the end of the day, again, if we are putting content out there that is deemed by our clients to be relevant, and to show empathy and to provide help and assistance to the whole person, then that's where we see the win for the brand. And again, it's consistent with who we are, because not every financial services brand can get away with a webinar about building your marriage in COVID-19. So, you know, it comes together, but yeah, just to make that point.
It's funny you mentioned that, because that was going to be my next question. In terms of why is it that other financial institutions are doing it? Is it a policy thing? It's a restriction? And I'm almost sure you and I had this conversation before, but just for the benefit of the audience, I'd love for you to share your perspective on it.
When you say not doing
why they're not doing it.
When you say not doing it meaning financial education in general, or the specific topics I would have mentioned, like relationships?
No, financial education in general, because, I mean, to your point, just like what you said, the content is not about, you know, do you want to buy something from us? No. It's, all right, let's add value, let's educate you, let's be relevant, so that when it's time for you to buy, you choose our brand versus the competitor's brand. And for me, it seems very black and white in terms of it makes perfect sense, but for some reason, every other financial institution, well, I'm not going to say they're not doing it. They've started doing it. And the reason why they've started doing it, and I can say this honestly, not because you're a guest on the podcast, but the reason why they've started doing this is because of what JMB has been doing. Because I've seen other financial institutions start to copy even the very same topics that has nothing to do with financial services that you guys are doing, financial education, and I've seen other brands start to copy as well. So why is it that it's such a struggle to get other financial institutions to actually buy into the whole idea of content marketing for the sake of adding value to their customers?
Okay, so I'm just going to say first off, that was not a paid endorsement, people.
No, but listen. It's fact. It's reality. Like, as I said, not because you're a guest. I mean, it's a reason why I wanted to bring you on, because these are the questions I wanted to ask. Because easily, and you can ask anyone, they obviously see that the JMB brand differentiates from other brands. So if it's so, I'm not going to say it's easy, but if it was so, you know, a bit easier for JMB to easily make that shift, you know, why is it so difficult for the other brands to do the same?
Wow. You know, well, I don't know if I'm not even in a position, obviously, to say what's in their headspace and what would have informed their strategy to do or not to do. I could share from my personal perspective over the years, again, being in this industry for as long as I have been and attempting different types of financial education initiatives. I mean, I remember as far back as 15 years ago, and I was at Daring, Bunting and Golding, an boutique investment house at the time. And we started to do a series of all island seminars where we would literally go into all the major towns where we had branches and just put an ad in the paper and say, come on out, guys. This is where we are, and we're going to be here 5:30 on Thursday. Come on and learn about investing. And I'll be honest and say that the response was mixed. You know, sometimes it was well received and we'd have a full house, and other times it was crickets. You know, barely a handful of folks would turn up. And what I've found over the years is that part of it may be the will or not, the will to or not to financially educate. Another part may be even the ability, because sometimes maybe in communicating, we don't always necessarily know as financial experts how to translate the information. That it itself can be very complex, I will admit, because even before working in this industry, don't ask me what equities were or bonds were, and sometimes it's hard to translate that. So there's that there. I've had to struggle with that as well, supporting my organizations in helping to communicate effectively. But can I also say too, it's even a catch-22 when it comes to the audience receptivity to what a financial institution has to say. Because what we've seen in Jamaica, as you may be familiar, I'm sure, is this emergence of average Jamaicans, regular Jamaicans, who have now become financial educators with their podcasts and Twitter accounts and workshops and all these things. And some of them work for financial institutions, some don't. But they have really brought financial education to the people by filling a need that you could arguably say financial institutions weren't filling before. But can I also add that I've found that the audience actually trusts them more, because when it comes from a financial institution, there's skepticism. You're trying to tell me something, you know, or, you know, you have your own agenda. You're thinking about your share price and your profit. Whereas Joe Schmo over here, who has his Twitter account and he's just doling out all the nuggets every day, he's just about helping people to learn because he's passionate about helping people to learn. And so I find even the level of trust. So even how we've had to do our own financial education has had to evolve to accommodate the reality that it's not just about JMMB speaking, but how are we enrolling other players in the conversation. So we've had some of those very same people on our podcasts and at our events. And we find that people come literally not necessarily because it's JMMB, but because they want to hear them. But the fact that we recognize that we are together in our objective to educate, that is what unites us. So as you rightly said, it's picking up now. Again, I mean, if you say it's imitation, I'll take that as the best form of flattery. But I think also too, it's out of need that is occurring. Because here we are in a crisis where people are devastated. The economic and financial impact of what this crisis has brought is significant. And I think financial institutions really, whether you're based on love or not, could not ignore the call to support their clients in helping them to navigate this time. So I think a lot of it right now too is birthed out of just need and an honest need to remain relevant and present in their clients' world.
All right, so one of the questions I want to ask, you know, someone being in a senior marketing role that you are, what are some of the challenges that you experience on a day-to-day being the CMO of, you know, a large institution? And how do you navigate those challenges? And the reason why I ask is I'm sure based on other conversations I've had with other heads of marketing, I've heard the challenges they've had, and you know, one person in particular, I won't necessarily say who it is, but speaking with that person, and that person is telling me, well, one of the things that she does to help her navigate certain challenges is to speak to other marketers, and in doing that, she kind of realized that, all right, probably it's not just that person who has these particular challenges. So just to get a sense for other heads of marketing who may be out there listening to this, some of your challenges and what's your approach to navigating those challenges.
Wow. So I mean, I if I could broaden that a bit, I wouldn't necessarily focus on day to day necessarily, because day to day can be anything. You have people challenges, resource challenges, and you're kind of juggling through, which I think is par for the course. I would say that for me, perhaps if I were to highlight all the challenges that I experienced, the number one challenge continues to be, how are you demonstrating the value that marketing brings to the business? And again, being financial services, which has a significant people component, because we're not as digitally advanced as some financial institutions in the first world who operate, in some instances, entirely on an e-commerce model, where you just you push out the ad on Google, people click, they open their account online, boom, it's like, shopping cart, the sale is done. We still have a very much integrated people component in how we convert leads and prospects into new accounts, and even how we serve our clients. And so that to me forms the underpinning of what is perhaps the biggest challenge that, and not just myself, I'm sure, but a lot of marketers locally in this sector. How are we connecting the dots between what marketing does and the impact that it has on the business? Because the reality is that a business objective usually comes down to a dollar sign. It's profit, it's price, it's market share. It's all of that. And with all of the best intentions and things that we're putting out there, things like social media reach and website visitorship and click-throughs and views and all of these things. Some of those, yes, are vanity metrics, which we probably wouldn't even report to management or board anyway. But again, for all that we do, how are we showing that connectivity in that funnel? Because usually in a financial services industry, you would have the funnel being, you have top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Usually the top of funnel is almost entirely marketing, where all that we do traps and captures leads and prospects. And then when you get to the middle of the funnel, that's when it starts to get hazy. It's marketing and sales working together to further drill down and qualify leads into prospects as they come in. And then finally, at the bottom of that funnel tends to be almost entirely sales. That does conversion. And invariably too, in a lot of financial institutions locally, sales does not necessarily report into marketing, or vice versa. They may both report into perhaps a CEO or the same C-suite role, and sometimes not even that. So again, it's not always easy to show that connectivity, and so it remains an ongoing dialogue about proving the value that marketing brings to the table, in spite of the challenges to really connect all the dots right all the way through the funnel.
And you mentioned something, and I want to ask you about it. I don't know if you have an answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do you get marketing and sales to be more aligned? Because I'm sure you know this. I've experienced it for myself. I've heard from a lot of both sides of the fence, actually. I've heard from marketers, I've heard from sales. Marketers are saying that sales is all about, getting that immediate sale, making money right now. And marketing is saying, no, it takes some time. But on the other fence, sales is saying that marketing doesn't really bring any value in terms of from a business revenue generating standpoint. So how can marketing and sales become more aligned in your point of view, from your perspective?
Well, I think part of it is intuitive, part not. So I think the intuitive part is that it starts, of course, with the planning and the strategizing. If you're not at the same table, a part of the same conversations, recognizing that you're all working towards achieving the same objective, then that sets yourself up for failure from the get-go. If you're not on that same choir singing from the same hymn book, that's the first issue. But to me, what I've found even beyond that, because even with the best of intentions with planning and strategizing, when it comes now to execution, which goes through the entire financial year, to me, that's where the rubber hits the road. And that is where I think a lot of marketers miss an opportunity. The question is, how engaged do we remain with our colleagues on the sales side? So for instance, for us, every week there is a sales team leaders meeting. We are there as marketing. We don't miss one. We get an invite right alongside them. When they're having their sales retreats, we are there as well. And so that's really what I've found to be, again, we haven't solved all the challenges, and we just put that out there. There's always work to be done and improvements to be made. But we've really come a long way in making sure that we're always at the table with our sales colleagues. We see them more or less like an internal client of ours. And so in the same way that they have their clients that they have to serve, we see them as ours. And so we are always in constant communication and dialogue, ensuring that we're always on the same page. If something is working, not working, how can we tweak that? And what that does is, it's not just only about sharing information and making sure we're always on the same page, but even just from the standpoint of relationship building, they see and feel your support, which makes all the difference, of course, because you're there, you're toe-to-toe with them, you're experiencing the same struggles they're experiencing, you're working with them to troubleshoot. Just that, from a very basic people engagement relationship perspective, really does wonders. So it's something I highly recommend as well.
I love the way how you phrased it. Marketing, or should I say, you see sales as the client for marketing. And it's such an interesting way to look at it, because one of the things I've realized, and I mean, we're all marketers and we understand that, yes, branding is important, positioning, messaging, communication, awareness. We understand that all those things are important. But one of the things that I realize with marketers is that a lot of us, we tend not to be able to compromise and meet in the middle. This is the way how we want to do marketing. And what I found, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about recently, probably in the last couple of weeks, is how can marketing better support sales? So you have, how I see it, it's really marketing has two goals. One goal is the brand awareness, which comes with brand management and all of that. But then the other side, which is the demand. How do you create the demand for the products and services? And that's where really supporting sales comes in. And the beauty about it is that I worked for a company where I had to do both marketing and sales. So I had to create the brand awareness, and then, in the afternoon, go here and meet with the clients and pitch to them. And because of that experience, it allowed me to see things on a more holistic level, where I can now see the end-to-end strategy of the entire funnel and how everything connects together. And that's when the light bulb really went off for me. And even what I would recommend to marketing is that even when the sales team, don't just meet with them in the office. When they're going up for their prospecting meetings, go with them. Because one of the things I realized, and this is something that blew my mind when I really realized it, is that even the way how you position the brand, even your messaging is dependent on certain words that your clients, your customers use, and ensuring that it resonates with the person or the customer base that you're actually trying to reach out to. So I love your point on that, definitely. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Well, I mean, one of the things I probably would add is, and I think it relates to something you had said earlier, because sometimes too, even as you try to build those relationships, sometimes sales, they have their own ideas about how marketing should be done as well.
Everybody does.
Everybody's a marketer, right?
Everybody's a marketer. Everybody does.
Everybody's a marketer. But, sometimes there's give and take. Sometimes, you would have to say, because sales is where the relationships are had, again, in our industry, with the salespeople also being the relationship managers, they having a very deep understanding of our clients. Even though we have a client insight function in marketing, sometimes we would have to give a little to get a little. It is what it is. But what we also do, and is something I'd also recommend, is even as the discussions occur, are we aligned around those key performance indicators? So even though we are moving towards the same objective and we want the same thing, what does success look like? Let's define that together. And having defined that, then it's easier to look at the outcome and objectively say, this has worked or it hasn't worked. And it tends to remove a lot of the haze that comes with, my idea is better than your idea or what have you. Or if this didn't work, or I didn't feel the marketing. We need to get to a place where we're really measuring on some aligned on key performance indicators.
Right. So in your view, what would you consider a win? What are some of those KPIs that you use within the marketing space to really determine whether or not you're on point with meeting your goals? And when I say goals, I'm more talking about the overall organizational goals and also the goals that align with sales.
Right. Well, there's a difference between what we would always like to measure, and then there's a difference between what we can measure. So there are brand-related key performance indicators, which have to do with things like what's happening in the digital space, reach and engagement being one of them, public relations value as a dollar amount is something that we also try to measure. So there are those brand indicators. We also do brand health studies as well, where we literally go on the ground doing surveys of persons within our target segments to test whether or not they know about the brand, the level of awareness of the brand, and also brand sentiment is also something that we assess. And then on this revenue generation side, it's really more so about what are the amount and types of leads that we are putting into the funnel. So for those sales-oriented type activities and campaigns, how many leads is marketing generating? Then, of course, we qualify those leads before we hand them off to push them down to the funnel, down through the funnel, not to the funnel. Marketing qualified leads, all of those metrics that we can, as best as possible, measure and track, those would form the revenue side of the key KPI list.
All right, awesome. So now I'm out of questions, but you've been so generous with your time, so I want to keep it very, very tight. Sure. So one last thing before you go. One of the things I allow every guest to do is to promote something that's important to them. Whether it's their business, a project they're working on, anything whatsoever that you'd love for the audience to kind of tune into based on what either you, Kerry-Ann Stimpson, is doing, or if you want to promote the JMMB brand, whatever it may be. So I'll give you the opportunity to do that now.
Okay. Well, Winston, for me, what I'm really passionate about focusing on right now, which kind of levels back to earlier in the conversation, is this whole concept of internal marketing. The more that I explore the topic and do my research and do my reading, I really feel it's one of those areas that are perhaps most underserved as far as how many people are actually having the conversation. Right. And not only from a financial services sector perspective, but also marketing in general, and even services marketing in general, because you have different types of services, of course. I think it's something that we're going to really have to double down and delve into more, especially now that we see what this COVID-19 crisis has done to our way of life, to our marketing resources. Budgets have gotten super small. If they weren't small enough before, right? We could always use a bigger budget in marketing. But what we've realized is that the strength of one's brand is going to be super critical in your ability to succeed in what will become the new normal and the new way of operating in what will be the future of marketing. The strength of your brand, the connectivity, the relevance that it has to the consumer. Right. And how that comes out in an authentic way, again, is going to go back to your people. Because if you can't deliver on that promise, then you might as well not talk about it. So again, how are companies going to engage their employees and their team members to really understand the values, the mission, the vision, and their role in helping to advocate on behalf of that brand within their own space, then I think that's really going to help to separate the men from the boys ultimately. So that's what I'm passionate about right now.
Or the girls from the women who wear the
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, don't want to mash any corn.
Awesome. An excellent note to end on. Kerry-Ann, thank you so much for coming on, being a guest again. If people want to reach you, how can they connect with you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. Kerry-Ann Betton, Betton, Stimpson, Stimpson. So feel free to follow and connect. I'm good with that. That's how you can easily find me. I mean, I'm on Twitter and Instagram, but hey, I think LinkedIn is an easy place to find me, so why not? And certainly for marketing conversations, that's where I love to have them too.
Definitely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Another episode of Conversation with Marketers. Thank you again, Kerry-Ann, for being on. Such a pleasure having you. Such an awesome conversation.
Thanks, Winston. I appreciate the invite again, and you're doing some awesome stuff. Keep pushing that marketing agenda. I love it.
Thank you. Take care. All the best.
Take care. All the best.